Why is it that it takes few seconds for our body to decide that it's had enough water not to be thirsty, but several minutes to recognize that no more food is needed because it's not hungry? Sensors in your mouth, back of the throat and esophagus can detect how much water has been consumed and report this information to the brain. Fairly shortly after drinking water, the body will start to behave as if that water is already in the bloodstream, even if it is still somewhere in the digestive tract. Food is a completely different story. The brain relies on stretch receptors in the stomach, hormones produced by the process of digestion, and sometimes chemicals generated by the bacteria living in the intestines. This is a much more complicated process that takes longer, which leads to a lag between actually being full and the feeling of fullness. Please correct me if I am wrong, but isn't the sensation of being full intentionally delayed as well? For most of human life, starvation has been a danger, so that times we have plenty of food available our bodies have adapted to eat a little extra. Correct me if I'm wrong, but insofar as evolution is concerned, isn't the watering hole one of the most dangerous places? You can travel with fruit or a haunch of meat, but water isn't portable, so getting your fill of water quickly decreases your chance of being ambushed by a predator. This is a much more complicated process that takes longer, which leads to a lag between actually being full and the feeling of fullness. Does this have anything to do with our remote ancestors foraging slowly throughout the day? I mean, my understanding is that they didn't actually graze, but it was more like grazing than structured meals, interspersed with gorging if they managed to kill something big or happen across some other abundant source of calories. Feeling full is complicated, and one of the reasons there's no magic pill for weight loss. Scientists are studying a variety of ways the body signals when it feels full. For example, one is called the ileal brake. Basically, there are sensors receptors in your ileum, the final part of your small intestine. When food and nutrients, particularly fats, are detected here, your body reports that it feels full. If you think about it, it's a nice evolutionary measure. We eat until we know fats and nutrients have not just filled our stomach, but our small intestine. Because it takes time to get from your stomach to the end of your small intestine, you can often overeat before you feel full. There are other mechanisms at play, but this is a good example of how our body detects it has eaten enough and how it can lead to delays and overeating. There's no magic pill for weight loss. Allow me to introduce you to amphetamines. So, serious question here. I do keto because after I eat a meal, I am actually full. However, on a regular standard American diet, I could pretty much eat until I throw up since I never really get full. Why is the stomach signal so different on high carb versus high fat? I'm sure the answer is pretty long and complicated. Other people have answered it well enough, but I want to throw out some notions of what hunger is that may help people with weight gain problems. You've probably heard about hunger being in the head, and well, that's pretty much true. Hunger is not exactly a I need food signal, it's a I'm currently not digesting food signal. Just because you feel hungry doesn't mean you have to eat. You may well be perfectly fine and fed, and overeating can definitely cause inconsistencies to worsen. You can often ignore hunger and it will go away after some minutes, assuming you didn't actually need to eat. This is why it's also healthier to eat less more often than the massive one-off meals we normally eat. And it helps lose weight because eating little bits keeps the hunger feeling away while potentially consuming less food overall. The receptors for hunger are all over: stomach activity, intestine activity, even just the motion of eating all provide signals for the brain to say I'm eating, or I'm fed, and the hunger dissipates. It's completely separate from I need food, I'm low on stuff. But yes, as others said, with water it's almost instant and is controlled mostly by the throat. And not particularly because you need water and have replenished it. This is why it's also healthier to eat less more often than the massive one-off meals we normally eat. On the other hand, when you fast for a long time, your body gets used to it and you only start getting hungry when you would normally break the fast. I've found that the opposite tends to apply to me. I get hungry when I eat more frequently than when I eat one large or two large meals per day. The act of eating, and having to think about food so often, every few hours, keeps food in my mind such that my entire waking time is consumed by what am I going to eat next, and then I want to eat more. Also, the more often I eat, the more often I release insulin in response to food, and therefore my hunger signals are triggered throughout the day. Also, if I eat multiple smaller meals, Each meal does not seem enough to satisfy my hunger, as I tend to need to feel full to be satisfied, and I can achieve that by eating a large meal less frequently. For both hunger and thirst, we have multiple signals that tell us whether we have had enough. For example, stomach dilation, salt or glucose levels in the bloodstream, etc. Unfortunately, all of these have at least several minutes lag for hydration, or even an hour's lag for glucose levels, and we often feel that we've had enough water or food before this happens. Psychologists believe, therefore, that the real reason we feel we've had enough is simply habit. We know roughly how much water to drink from previous experience, and how much food to eat. The reason you feel you've had enough water earlier than for food is simply that you have different drinking habits to eating habits. If you retrain yourself to stop eating after less food, you will feel full from food earlier. I started intermittent fasting just over a month ago. I'm 6 feet 1 inches and was about 235 pounds. I was a huge foodie and lived in a city with crazy food options. I ate till my food was gone, and often did all-you-can-eat places, though much healthier than American restaurants for sure. But these also often included all-you-can-drink alcohol as well. When I started I struggled hard. I'd eat a little, and needed to eat again soon, or I'd feel like I was crazy starving. This only lasted a week though. After that, I was able to keep to 2 meals within a 7-hour window. I only drink water, and if I have cereal, it's with almond milk. Today though, I'm now completely fine eating 1 normal size meal around noon. And that's it. I've even increased my output, but I wouldn't call it a full-on exercise routine, but I'm definitely burning something, as I can see it on my body and face. But the hunger isn't ever really there. This explanation really hit home for me, as I never thought I'd hit this point when I started. I have only ever cheated once a few days ago by eating 30 minutes before my normal window. I've never experienced this. I feel full and don't overeat unless I really want to. Maybe I'm just lucky. You are so lucky, Mayo. Wait, what? If I feel not hungry after eating food, just like not thirsty after drinking water. Hormones have a lot to do with hunger. Sated and starving dogs, when given a blood transfusion to the opposing dog, will display opposing characteristics. Starving dog will not eat, sated dog will gorge and vomit. Thirst and hunger appear similar, but work very differently. Regulating how much water and salts you need in your body is really determined by your kidneys. Sensors in your heart and kidney measure if you have enough water in your vessels, enough pressure in your circulation, and what salts need adjusting. These processes take a long time and are not directly coupled to your brain's desire to drink. You get thirsty when your mouth is dry. In some cases, it's because you are dehydrated and aren't producing enough saliva. Most of the time, it's breathing through your mouth or dry heated air in winter. Example 1. People who lose a lot of blood need more volume, water with salts, in their system. They do not get thirsty though. Example 2. Patients with kidney failure have too much water in their bodies, but it is immensely difficult for them to drink less. Doctors need to rigorously explain to them what amount of drinking is acceptable if you're on dialysis. Example 3. Palliative care patients who cannot swallow anymore, dysphagia, cannot drink or eat. Giving them IV fluids only prolongs death. It does not alleviate thirst, however. That's why these patients prefer coating their mouth with water soda beer, because it's delicious and stops thirst. Early humans often had access to unlimited water, but rarely had access to unlimited food. You can also consume enough water within less than a minute, whereas eating takes a lot longer, or at least took longer, until we invented high-density foods like chocolate, energy bars, etc. Thus there was an evolutionary need to quickly realize how much water to drink, but no pressure to realize the same for food. Overeating hasn't been a problem until pretty recently. People who are aware of how their own bodies actually feel can normally tell when they're not hungry anymore really quickly, or even when they feel they're getting full. I've never thought, damn, I overate, I should have just stopped 5 minutes ago. I can normally very easily tell when I am going to be full soon. I eat because I'm hungry and because I have to, not because I want to finish a whole dish or because it tastes good. Biochemist here with specialty in hormones. When you are hungry, your gut releases a hormone known as ghrelin, which signals that it's time to eat. When you start eating, leptin, a hormone that is produced by fat, checks your fat supply, and if it is sufficient, so that you don't die of starvation, is released from your fat cells to act on your brain to tell you to stop eating and to induce a feeling of being full. This usually takes around 20 minutes for it to enter the bloodstream and act on your brain. So I always advise people, if they want to have seconds, wait 20 minutes, and if you are still hungry after, then you good to go, otherwise you may just overeat. Leptin not functioning properly is linked to diseases such as type 2 diabetes, etc., so it's a pretty important hormone. Hope that helps.